My name is Nikole Lim. I'm the founder and international director of Freely in Hope and the author of Liberation is Here. I'm here today with Jean Nangwala, a content creator, performer, and survivor advocate from Lusaka, Zambia. We're going to talk about a taboo issue that is silently violating women and girls in our communities and in our world, the issue of sexual violence. Our conversation is a collaboration between Made for PAX and Freely in Hope. And right now, PAX is curating a story arc on nonviolence with the belief that we were created to practice nonviolence as a way of life in the world. God intended for us as men and women to live and lead together in ways that promote healing, harmony, and shalom. This biblical idea of shalom sadly is often far from reality. Not only are women under the constant oppression of misogyny and sexual violence, they are also taught to believe the myth that they should respond to violence with silence and acceptance. But today, Jean and I want to address this myth head on. Why are women silenced? How can women live out true biblical nonviolence in response? And what could healing and creative resistance to issues like this look like? Join us as we unpack these questions together. Thank you for having this conversation with me. I think all of our conversations have been just so meaningful over the last decade of our relationship.
Yeah, a whole decade.
A whole decade. We met 10 years ago in Zambia.
Yeah.
And it was a very unexpected encounter where I was there to shoot your uncle's wedding as a filmmaker photographer.
Yeah.
And you were just this little 14-year-old girl
who was just trying to dance at a wedding.
But there was something about you and your spirit that was just so interesting because I just felt like there was this fire in your body and in your voice that was just wanting to be heard. And it wasn't until we kind of built this connection that you started to reveal your story to me.
And it's interesting that you're saying like that there was like this energy, and I'm like, because I never even used to speak, so it's really great that you could still pick it up even without me saying much.
No, that's true. I mean, yeah, you didn't speak much, but I knew that there was something in there. And I think, especially at that age, right, 14, I think that's what also connected me with you, because also when I was 14, I felt like I had so much to say, but I felt like I wasn't allowed to say it, so I didn't.
Okay, yeah.
And I wonder if that was kind of the same in your context growing up in Zambia.
The strange thing about the silencing piece, it's not like anyone ever communicated to you and say, don't speak up in front of people, don't say it. No one ever tells you that, but you grow up seeing it and just immediately putting yourself in a place, because culturally everything around you shows you that women do not speak up as much. Right. Young girls at this age, should not, without even direct communication, you just knew that your place was this.
Right. So as we've been talking about silencing in the church and the silencing of women in the church, that causes such great harm for us in terms of the autonomy of our voices, that it perpetuates even other forms of violence. How have you experienced that in the church?
I think it's even to date, I still try to, just like think and be like, wow, harm actually happened in the church. Like harm happens in the church. And for me, I was in a choir doing well, actually, because the voice was doing the things, but I had a leader that I really looked up to. He was amazing. He was in the band, and he, led us at choir, youth group. He was one of the leaders, and he did it all. And because of that, I had so much admiration towards him, a lot, and respected him immensely. And so when he invited me to his place, I didn't see anything wrong with that. This is when I see all these things play out, the patriarchy and this notion that when a girl says no, she just means try harder. Because when he tried at first, I did say, oh no, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? Like, immediately my reaction was, no, don't do that. But he kept on going. He was like, so what? And like in a very playful way that I'm like, does my no mean anything? like in this moment, like, does it really? And so now that's playing off, and it's just really being, playful and like, so what, you want it. And so that is happening, and I'm just like, I can't fight you off. I'm in your house. I came in this house because I trust you. And I knew and I felt then that I was safe. And so I'm here. There's nothing I can do. And also fighting. I had already gone through rape. And this time around, I'm like 18 or 19. Between those two ages. So I'm like, this has happened to me before. I have fought this before, and it was painful. And you know what? Because I'm saying no, and you're going, at least you're someone that I know. Just get on with it, and let's finish. And I remember just really lying there like wood and just finish, do what you want to do. After that, he was like, well, I have to make it to church soon, like we should leave.
See, he gonna go ahead and rape you and then like go to church
and then,
right after.
So I was like, okay. And we went, but I had never seen that as abuse. I hadn't seen that as abuse that day. But I remember really crying and feeling disgusted towards my own body. And the fact that later, like as time went by, and I noticed how angry I was towards him. Like I would go to church and look at him and be so mad. Like my whole body would react when I see him. And feeling lost in the church. I could not sing anymore. I stopped singing, which was one thing I really loved doing. I started missing practice, like here and there, and then it became even worse.
Also because you didn't want to confront him?
I didn't want to confront him, but also it felt like he wouldn't, there's no way he actually raped me. Like I was at his house. I took myself there.
So again, the self-blame.
So it's my fault. Like I went there, and it's someone I know. Like someone I know would never abuse or violate me. And this is what's happening in the church. It's like you never
your
think
closest connections.
Anyone in this church, anyone who knows the Lord, anyone who preaches and sings and whatever, could ever harm someone. Like we never think about it that way, that rapists are just not, outside. Like they're in our homes, they're in our churches, they're in our schools, they're everywhere. And so for me as well, I could not comprehend that had happened. And when I tried to bring it up, the sad part is he didn't even think he had violated me.
Because he thought he had a right to your body.
He thought he had a right. Like, well, you were right there and you let me, know. Which is like, I said no.
Right.
And you pushed.
Right.
And to protect myself, I kept quiet. And he wondered why I was so angry at him. Why are you so angry? Why are you mean to me? And it's like, you forced yourself on me. And it was like, well, not really. Well, you also need to apologize to me because you were rude to me after. And no one talks about rape as it being super close to you that could happen with someone that you know.
Right.
And because of that, men themselves in the church who, when a woman just says no, cannot see that as she actually means what she says. They can't comprehend that, and so it's like the pushing. And when it so happens, it's like, girls sometimes just say no so that you try harder, and this proves it. And that kept on happening. And I asked somebody in the church whom I also as well looked up to and said, hey, if this person keeps asking for sex and you don't want, like this is happening to you in the church, what would happen? And I was just really inquiring.
This was a leader, right?
This was a leader. And the response was, there's no one in our church that could ever do that.
Oh God.
And because there's no one in the church that could ever do that, how do you expect me, who is struggling with this pain, who feels violated, has been violated, to trust the sanctity of church anymore? Because I came here because it's safe, but it's no longer safe for me. Because you, in as much as you're not the person that forced themselves after I said no, you just told me that nothing of such sort can ever happen. And if it does, then it's my fault. I brought it upon myself. And so I think the church harms survivors by protecting the perpetrator, one, and by not believing that perpetrators could and are in the church.
Yeah.
We just throw things under the rag in the church so much that we are comfortable and we can step on the rag and it's fine.
And in the process, you're stepping on the throats of survivors.
Yeah.
Which does not create our sanctuaries, right? As places of safety and restitution and life-giving resources and love for all people. Survivors are not included in that because they've become places of harm more than safety.
To another person that is like in the similar situation, being raped by someone you trusted with your whole heart, and you thinking to yourself it was not rape, because there's no way in hell that would have harmed me like that. I would say pay attention to your body. It would tell you. Like, and your chest. If you feel like the heaviness will sit on you, pay attention to your shoulders. Pay attention how the energy around you, and especially when you're around them, feels. That in itself should be enough to tell you that what they did was wrong. Like, they don't have to say it to you. Or you know, like, culturally, yes, it's going to be hard for you to admit to yourself that that's what it happened. And so allow, because of the silence, right? Allow in that silence as well, let it speak to you. So because your body it'll be as loud as it can. Even if it's not feeling the heaviness, it could just be feeling numb. And if you feel numb, if you feel like you can't talk, if you feel like you can't do anything anymore, pay attention to it. And just know that there's no way in hell that your body is going to react like that if what had happened was not wrong. I think for me, that was the turning point, when the more I saw this person, the more I felt less about myself. The more I could not sing something I love to do. The more I did every single thing that did not make sense to me, the more I tried to find validation in something else. And they were fine, but I wasn't. And so for any girl who's in the same similar situation, like, tell somebody. If the church does not stand with you, if it means moving to a different church, do it. But don't feel as if you have to protect this person at the expense of losing yourself. People will talk because the culture is everywhere. The culture of silence, the culture of violence is everywhere. So they will talk and they will blame you and they will shame you. But at this point, this matters more.
So our communities of faith are meant to be places of safety and healing, because that's why we're there, because God is a God of safety and healing. Yet,
calmness and peace and
all
that.
All the things that we're worth receiving. Yet when the church silences women, it becomes a place of harm instead. And I wonder if that sense of external harm becomes internal harm, where we start to believe those lies and we start to harm ourselves, harm others. Like you said, you became very angry with yourself and with the church leader who had raped you. Instead of causing greater harm, what are the alternatives, and how do we as church leaders establish that place of safety as it should be.
Be open in the church to have uncomfortable conversation. Like, why are we so scared of uncomfortable conversations? And also, if somebody has gone through sexual violence, do you in the church have a system that works to protect the survivor
over the leader?
And do you even have policies that say, if you ever do this to someone, you know that you are demoted or you are not welcome into leadership? Like, do you have systems that, hold leaders accountable? Someone comes to you and say, hey, I've gone through rape. Before you say, I'll pray for you and everything is gonna be all right, can you sit down and listen to the story? And I think in the church we are so accustomed to everything is just gonna work out and everything is gonna be fine. We'll pray about it and it's gone. It's like rape comes with so much pain. So you can't expect that one prayer you did, everything is gone. It's like, no. Can we be open to letting this space be safe for the survivor to break down to God, ask questions, why did this happen? And you to just sit there and say, I will follow your lead. You want to cry now? We'll cry together. Do you want to pray? I'm here to pray with you. Do you want us to find someone to go, counseling? We'll do that. Let the survivors be the lead towards, the journey and the justice that they need in their life. Also, another thing I noticed that, and I think pastors are great. I really do think they're great, and their job is, it's involving. It's a lot. But I also do not think every pastor is a counselor.
That's right.
Can we stop thinking this girl is going through this and you just say, just go see the pastor, it's fine. Can we find people that can actually help the survivor professionally? And I know there are some pastors who are qualified to, give the advice or sit with a person and help the person through. And there are some that are absolutely not. That their calling is definitely not that. Your calling is on the pulpit. Can we leave it there?
Right.
And somebody else who is qualified to work with someone who's going through this kind of trauma to help them through. Right. And I think that's what the church needs to realize, that they need help as well. They can't be in it all for the survivor when it happens. And so if the survivor is giving you the lead to say, I need help and I need professional help, that does not mean they don't believe in Christ anymore. They absolutely do believe in Christ, and they need the help. Right. I think another thing is realizing that sexual violence is just not something that's happening outside. We have become so accustomed to the fact that people that we know, people that we trust, people in the church, people that know the Lord, people that they would never harm anyone in such a way. And the moment you do that, you discredit the survivor's voice already. Before they even tell you the story, you discredit it because you do not think nor believe that it could ever happen in the church. And if we continue doing that, whenever rape happens in the church, survivors will be unable to say it or call it out or even just seek healing. And the perpetrators believe that they can get away with it and they're going to do it again. For me, it's like, do you want your church to be run by people like that? Do you want leadership that's like that? Leadership that does not value accountability, leaders that do not value transparency. Is that what you want? And what does it say about you as well? It's just all these elements. And if we don't have these structures that make it safe for survivors to speak out, then we just don't have a structure at all. Like if your church is not safe,
then we're not the church.
Then you're not at all.
Yeah, the global statistic of survivors is 1 in 3 women. And so that means a third of our female relationships, a third of our female congregation members could be survivors of sexual violence. And I think that changes the way that we talk, the way that we lead, the way that we have these conversations and develop policies to ensure that we are always protecting the voice of the survivor.
Yeah.
I can see how in the church, being stifled and oppressed and silenced for so long, it's easy for women, for survivors, people who've been violated, to just up and leave.
Oh yeah. I'm done.
Right. And I can't blame them
Oh,
for that. The anger, right, and the harm that's caused by the non-belief of your story, of your truth, is incredibly violating. And instead of retaliating and leaving out of anger, I still believe, right, God is a God of healing and goodness and safety and love and protection. That even if the institution of the church doesn't embody that, God still does.
Yeah.
And so at the same time, how do you practice forms of creatively resisting against the silencing of women instead of retaliating? What are some creative forms of expression that have been helpful for you in your own healing?
Music is a huge part of me, and it's also a way that I communicate with God. Yeah. Dance became a huge part as well, in a sense that there was so much anger, and I could not just go to the person and shout at them and be like, oh, that felt good. No, I couldn't do that. Dance required so much energy, and every step that you take in the body, like there's so much tension in my body that when I danced, it felt like I could finally loosen up and I could take it all out. For me, justice did not look like, let's go to the court and I'm pressing charges and all that stuff. I knew I didn't want to go through how long that's going to take and the shame that can come from that and all that stuff. Like, I knew personally that was not the direction or something that was going to make me feel like I got justice. And I also did not know how the justice system was going to work to, was it going to work in my favor or not? Yeah. And so for me, it was like, I'm going to call out every single thing that makes you and makes perpetrators have this sense of power to even go on to inflict this kind of violence. And speaking out for me was huge. Like, that's how I pursue justice, ensuring that you know that there are people in your circle that are perpetrators. And so for every survivor, justice will look different. For some, speaking up and sharing their story might not be something that they want to do. Yeah. And I find many people wanting the survivor to tell their story even before you believe them. And like the details. They could say, yes, I was abused. And it's like, oh, what happened?
Did it really happen?
Yeah, like what were you doing?
What are the details?
For some, sharing all those details is not justice for them.
It's re-traumatizing.
You have to respect that. And creatively, to be honest, when you go through such trauma, you do not have the words to explain how you feel and the depth of your pain. And that's why, like, creative resistance is such a huge part for me, and I've seen for so many survivors as well. Yeah. Like drawing, if it's painting, if it's saying something, like sometimes you need the movement, just like your hands to move with you, or your brain to kind of explain how you feel, or your body to just sit with you or dance, or like you just really can't explain the pain. I knew that speaking up was also part of it. Mm-hmm. I was, of course, scared of people's reaction. But I also got to a point where I knew that I would rather you hate me, but two other girls in the church can come to me and say, I'm going through the same thing. Yeah. Or I went through this and thank you for speaking up. Yeah. And that to me mattered more. So I started speaking up, and I heard a number of people that say, is she the only one who's going through? it. I know a number of people have gone through it, but no one is talking. Exactly.
That's why you're there.
If you don't see the problem, then the fact that a number of people are going through it and still decide not to talk about it,
right,
and you are coming for me who's talking about it, oh honey, you are the problem then.
Yeah, you're the one silencing the other girls.
Yeah, you are.
Over the past 10 years, you have taught me
everything now.
Everything that I didn't know I needed to know about advocacy with survivors, and some of the very important things that you've mentioned on listening and understanding the diversity of what justice could look like for each survivor, not rushing to conclusions, but really holding space in the tension, in the pain, not rushing to resolve or to pray or to spiritualize the pain away, but to really sit in the suffering, I think is really imperative to that healing process for both of us, so that as the advocates and as leaders can also come into a greater understanding of what healing's purpose is. Yeah. Because without suffering, why would we need the healing? And if we could sit a little bit longer in that suffering and pain and tension with you, then we get to also understand, okay, how do we wait for the solution that comes from you, that you will lead us to, and how do we then work together to create these communities and churches of safety that we so desire to see. So thank you so much for the 10 years of,
You're welcome.
Of calling me out and sharing your voice in a way that is liberating, not only for survivors, but even for folks like me that have been challenged and called into greater advocacy with survivors of sexual violence, so that we can bring healing in the world as Jesus called us to. There's so much power in your voice.
Oh.
I was wondering.
You were wondering what?
If you could share a creative expression.
Oh my God.
To close our time. I know that when you first go on stage, you always lead with a song.
I do.
So we're going to end, if we could, to conclude, because I want you to have the last word.
My last words are to survivors who are facing abuse and violence in a place that they think is safe. I pray that you find somebody who is safe and someone who could walk with you and can help you navigate that. And I know it's really hard and painful, but know that it's okay to receive help, and you don't have to carry it by yourself, because the fight of finding justice just for yourself is a lot to carry it all on your own. So you will make it on the other side, definitely. And the shame is not yours to carry. There's a song that says, it's in Bemba. It's just mainly a song that says, I uplift everything to you because you're a good God. And for survivors, I want you to know that even in the midst of the pain, He still remains good. And you will see the testimony of your life at the end. Like, I never understood why rape happened to me. And then now that I am here and pursuing my dreams and all that stuff, and I look back and I say, I wouldn't know anything else that I would do if not to support survivors of violence. And, you know, like, God still made my bad into good. Like, that's how good God is. And I just want you to remember that. Kulim wena pela mweo na pela kata Bantani mweka mwalingo kuwa chilolo tatakatula wamweoni mweka sumbule shinalienu umuya yawe mwali wama yawe mwali wama Yahweh mwali wama mwali you are the Most High God. Jehovah, you are the Most High. Lord, you are the Most High God. I always will sing this song. I will always sing this song.
We hope that you feel inspired and equipped from this conversation, and that you have a better sense of how to deconstruct the myth of sexual violence in your own life and in your community. If you would like to learn more about how PAX and its current story on nonviolence unfolds, you can visit madeforpax.org, as well as follow PAX on Instagram at madeforpax. At Freely in Hope, you can support the education and leadership of survivors like Jean by visiting freelyinhope.org. If you want to learn how to be a better advocate with survivors in your context, join the Hope Circle membership, where you can engage in intimate conversations with survivor leaders and learn from their wisdom and solutions for building a world free of sexual violence.